Sports for Real with Coach Hall. I put that quote on the thumbnail because it came from a viewer who made a comment about a previous video I made about the Crawford Spence fight. It hints at collusion by the boxing commission against Spence and pretty much accuses Crawford of putting things in his glove to get an extra advantage over Spence. I don't believe in any of that stuff, and the only reason I put it out there was to make a point. I'll get to that in a second. But yesterday I saw a video of the interview that Stephen A. Smith did with Teddy Atlas. Atlas, he got his point across eventually, but the point is that Smith made some comments after having Atlas leave. First thing he said, he recounted the auto wreck that Spence had, where he flipped his car several times, and he didn't really have any major facial injuries, but he did destroy his jaw and the lower teeth involved with it. Secondly, he said that Spence also got rear-ended not long after that first accident. Okay, fine. I saw Spence talk about one fight he had recently where the guy hit him and he kind of like stunned him, and people couldn't figure out what it was he was doing, but he said that, he got hit and he thought his teeth had fell out, and he didn't want the embarrassment of having people see his teeth fall out of his mouth. Okay, that was the third point Smith brought up. And the fourth thing, in connection with the incident where he thought his teeth had fallen out in the ring, Oscar De La Hoya brought that up in a tweet just before the fight. And the guy that hit him is a lesser fighter than Crawford. And he said that if Crawford was to hit him in the jaw, what would happen? Well, Crawford did get to Spence's jaw early in the fight, and because of that, his face seemed to start swelling up. Well, when you go back to what the commenter said, he's saying that he's never seen Spence's face swell up like that in the first 2 rounds. It looked like he's already done 12 rounds, and it was just the second round. Well, when you combine the issues that Spence had to deal with, plus the fact that Smith brought up these issues about these comments, and then the commenter said the guy was swollen up, I come to the conclusion that maybe the wreck still is affecting Spence, causing his face to do what it did. Later in the video, Smith called for Spence to hang it up, or at least take a very, very long time, at least a year, before he considers taking a rematch with Crawford or fighting anybody else. Well, I'm kind of agreeing with that, only because I saw what happened with Meldrick Taylor and Julio Cesar Chavez years ago. I don't think the same thing is going to happen to Spence, but if the jaw is really the problem and he keeps getting hit on that jaw, and any future fights people are going to focus on that jaw, it could lead to some serious complications for Spence. Originally, I had called for a rematch. I think it's only sporting that the champion, if he's going to lose his belts, you get a chance to get him back in a rematch. But if his health is really the problem, then I think that he needs to take a close look at that, because I'd rather him just take that big money he just made and ride off into the sunset. But knowing how fighters are, there will be a rematch, and we'll see how things unfold. But if what Smith is saying and Spence is really having trouble with his health, then I think I have to agree with Smith that maybe he should just walk away into the sunset. Sports for Real.